We continue with our lectures on change of subject or literal equations. So we have this expression and want to make R sub 1 the subject. So we write it down. There are so many ways of tackling this. You can pick the LCM of all these three fractions. So I can get 1 over R, R sub 2, R sub 1, and then multiply every term here by that. And that will get rid of the fractions. For this one, we decided that we'll find the LCM for this side and then do the individual divisions. And then finally, we got this. So R into that gives us R sub 2. So R sub 2 times 1 gives us that. R sub 2 into this gives us capital R. So capital R times 1 gives us that. So we get this expression. The next step is that we do cross multiplication. So R times the whole of that, R sub 1 times the whole of that gives us the left-hand side. Then this times 1 gives us what we have on the right-hand side. We then expand the brackets. When we do that, we can also simplify it that way, or we can look at the value that we have here, which we want to make the subject, and divide this expression on both sides. So when we do that, it takes us to this. So this divides that. We get our R sub 1. Then the right-hand side gives us this. So making R sub 1 the subject in this expression gives us what we have down here. We want to move on to the next question. If we look at this one too, we have our I being equal to the whole of this expression, E over R plus small r over n. And we want to make this small n here the subject. So we write the whole of this down. The first step is that we multiply the numerator, which is this one, by n. We multiply the denominator with this fraction also by n. So E times n gives us En, and then the whole of this fraction times n, the n here will divide that n. So this n will divide that, and then we have our expression here. The next step is that we multiply both sides by Rn plus R, and so that takes us to this step. Then over here, we expand the bracket, and that takes us here. I times that, I times this gives us this. We now rearrange. We need all the terms containing n. And so we get them. So in rearranging, we will subtract this expression from this side and add it, and also subtract it from this side as well. So we subtract IRN from this side, we subtract IRN from this side, and that takes us to the next level. It will get off here, but it will appear here as being subtracted. The next is that we factorize our n out, and then we divide what we have in the bracket on both sides. And so this divides that, we get our n. And then the next is that we have our n being equal to IR all over E minus IR. And so that is the value for this expression when we want to make our n the subject. It flows. So you look at it carefully and you go by that same system. We want to look at another example. That is example 8. Let's look at the expression. We have our I being equal to the whole of this expression. We want to make m the subject. So we multiply both sides of the equal sign by mr plus nr, and that takes us to this point. We then expand the bracket. So I times everything that we have in the bracket will give us this on the left-hand side. We now rearrange to get all the terms containing m. And when we do that, we get this step. So we have our m here, we have our m there. The next step is that we factorize our m out. Then what we have in the bracket, we divide both sides of the equal sign, the terms there by that expression. So this divides that, we get our m, then this expression will stay. So when we want to make m the subject in this expression, we get this value as the solution. We want to move on to the next one. If you look at this one, there is a square root involved. And so we need to see how we can also grapple with that. Very, very important. So over here, what we are going to do is that we are going to change the subject from V to our L. Now, when you look at L here, it's under the square root sign. So what we do is that we'll square every term over here. So we square the V to get a V squared. The essence is that we want to get rid of the square root sign so that we can then work with the values under the square root sign. So we square the whole of this. So we get a m plus m squared, m over m squared dot. So when we square the square root, it goes away because the whole of this is raised to the power half. And when you square it again, half times 2 gives you 1. So it takes you to this level. Now over here, we are taking our time to simplify everything. So in the bracket, we break this bracket or push the 2g in. So 2g times 1 gives us that. 2g times x on L gives us that. Now over here, we are also going to expand this bracket. So this term times that will give us this. The whole of this term times that also give us our value here. We want to still move on. We can bring these 2 in front here, but let's move on. So the next step is that if you look at all these expressions, what we are going to do is that we need to still rearrange in such a way that we can then get our L on one side, and then we'll say that we have now finished. So if you look at this expression, what we are going to do is that we are going to subtract this value from one side. So basically, when you do that, then it takes you to one side. So we are subtracting this value from both sides. That is our v squared. So when we subtract v squared from here, it will take us there. Then the next step is that we are also going to add this value to both sides. The whole of this expression, we are adding this to both sides. So when we do that, it gets away from here, but we find it on the other side. So we added this to both sides, and we subtracted v squared also from both sides, and that took us to this point. Now, at this point, what we can do is that we can simplify this to get a common LCM m squared, so that the whole of this will also come on top over here, so that it will assume the same LCM. Now over here, we do cross multiplication. So m squared goes to multiply the whole of this, and then m squared L goes to multiply the whole of that. And that takes us to this point. The cross multiplication will get rid of the fractions here. Now at this point, what we are going to do is that we have our L, this time on just one side or attached to one term. So we pick the whole of this expression and divide the left-hand side and the right-hand side by that. And that is what we have done at the next step. So the whole of this will divide that, leaving our L, and then we have this as the solution on the right-hand side. So our I will be equal to the whole of this, but we have our m squared here, m squared there, so that will divide. But then we get to the last step, so our I will be equal to the whole of this expression. And so that is how we find the change of subject for this one. But over here, we haven't actually finished. If you look at where we have the 2, we still need to do some simplifications there. So we want to move into that and then simplify it further. So we say that our I will be equal to, we'll bring our 2 in front. So the 2 comes here. We get our gx, and then our capital M, our small m squared, and then down here too, we bring our 2g, and then capital M plus m squared minus m squared v squared. So basically, this is how it should be. We take the 2 here and bring it in front. The GS can also come in front, then we get our, then over here, how about 2G? So the 2G comes in front, and we leave it this way. You can't divide through by 2 because we don't have 2 here. If you have 2 there, then we can divide through. So we leave the answer this way. Other than that, you can't do anything else to it. So that does it for this aspect. And we end on this note. Thank you very much.